Addictions touch even the best Christian families right here in San Diego. This is Recovery Radio San Diego with Todd Cunningham of Pacific Hills Treatment Center and Recovery Options Network, along with John and Leslie Savage on KPRZ weekdays at 6:30. Stay with us for real-life stories, help from Christian experts, what works and what doesn't work, and local area resources for you and your family. Welcome to Recovery Radio San Diego.
Good evening. You're listening to 1210 AM KPRZ. This is a new radio program about addictions and self-destructive behaviors and God's gift of recovery. Welcome to San Diego's Recovery Radio. My name is John Savage, and I am a grateful recovering addict. I'm one of 3 members of this new local radio ministry. Recovery Radio is a daily program heard Monday through Friday at this time, and its sole mission is to assist addicts and their families by providing local professional resources to get them the help they need so you can live a healthy and productive life. I believe that man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And to do that, you must first surrender from your destructive behaviors. Seek forgiveness from Him and acknowledge what Christ did for you on the cross. And from there, that's where my freedom began. Others involved in this ministry is my wife, Leslie, who throughout my period of drug abuse and now my recovery journey has stuck by me. And I'm very thankful to her for that. And our third partner in this program is Todd Cunningham. His role with Recovery Radio is to work with those seeking to change their lives through recovery. He especially enjoys working with family members and helping them make decisions to improve their lives. To get a hold of Todd at any time, 24/7, it's at just a telephone call away, and that's area code 949-973-9140. That's 949-973-9140. If you or someone you know is at a point where you want to begin again and get on the road of recovery and sobriety, but need financial help, call right now to hear about our matching grants that's been made available through our friends up at Pacific Hills Treatment Centers. Call area code 949-973-9140 if you'd like information about our financial scholarship programs to help you get on the road to recovery. If you are a local San Diego church or a business seeking more information on a structured treatment plan, please call us. We've got a 1-for-1 matching program to meet your needs, and that's at area code 949-973-9140. My recovery journey began for me on May 1st, 2007. That was a little over 3 years ago when I finally surrendered and met God while locked up in a Tijuana jail cell. For 2 years leading up to that day, I had been abusing prescription medication, which quickly led to a 6 to 8 per day OxyContin habit along with cocaine. My turning point was an arrest that happened in Tijuana when I completely surrendered and admitted that my life was completely unmanageable, and at the time I was powerless over my behavior. So over the last 3 years, I have a renewed purpose in my life, and this radio ministry is one of those purposes, and I'm very thankful to be reunited with my family and here today to talk about recovery. This program is about recovery from self-destructive behaviors like alcohol, chemical dependencies such as prescription medication abuse, and or narcotics. It's also a program about reconciliation and God's plan for your life. We believe that the churches are a great place for recovery, as it was for me. But when someone is in the depths of their addiction, you need immediate first aid prior to the church community taking over. So over the last few weeks, we've been talking about the programs that are available out there, defining what the problem is and what addictions are and the types of addictions, the family role. We've also talked about detox, but we've had a lot of telephone calls from people curious about the intervention field. So we're turning our this week over to our expert, a national expert, a father-son team, Keith and Shane Hankinson, who are located on the East Coast but travel throughout the United States helping people with the intervention process. So on the phone with me this evening is Keith Hankinson. How are you tonight, Keith?
I'm real real good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm really glad that you've carved out the time for us to talk about the intervention field, and then you'll be with us for the next couple of days, kind of defining the programs of intervention and what it's all about. So what I'd like to do first, if I can, is just ask you about your business.
Sure. Well, I got into the field of intervention actually as a youth pastor. I worked in the Minneapolis suburban area, western suburban areas, and we worked with students that were referred to us by the probation officers and school liaison, police liaison officers, and school faculty. Basically, out of a high school of a couple thousand students, it was the ones that were really struggling and troubled. It would be the 30 or 40 students smoking pot at the north door, or the 20 or 30 that were out in the parking lot skipping school drinking, and the ones that were, troubled with family problems and broken families. And so that was the type of student we were working with. And so a lot of them had alcohol and drug problems. And as a young youth pastor, I really didn't know what I was doing with those kinds of issues. So I went back to additional school and learned about crisis intervention, and I've been doing it ever since.
Well, that sounds very interesting. So how many years has that been?
Well, I was trained at the Johnson Institute in 1975, so I guess that's 35 years ago. And, of course, I did sell them, and on the side when I was full-time youth ministry. And then after 11 and a half years of youth ministry, I went back to school and got my master's in counseling psychology and got certified as an alcohol and drug counselor, and also did intervention work on the side of my practice. But then we became networked around the country so much that I closed my practice and went full-time just with crisis intervention. So now we serve all 50 states and other countries, and it's just a wonderful field to be involved in, and a wonderful ministry.
Well, we had your son Shane on just a couple of weeks ago. You were out in the field doing what you do best, and that's working with families and interventions. So your son Shane is also a part of your team, is that correct?
Yes, he's a vital part of it. He's younger. He's very energetic. I give him some of my toughest cases. He's very gifted in what he does.
Keith, what type of interventions do you do? I mean, is it strictly just alcohol and drug abuse, or does it expand from there?
Well, we interrupt or intervene in many different stuck areas of humans' lives. Our mission statement roughly reads that we want to offer God's hope and healing for impaired individuals, and we go on in our mission statement to describe that we believe impaired individuals are those suffering from alcohol addiction, drug addiction, gambling addictions, or sexual addictions. We describe impaired people as those struggling with mental illnesses or eating disorders, bulimia, anorexia, anorexic bulimia, morbid obesity. We do crisis intervention for runaway teenagers. So pretty much, John, it's any pattern of human behavior where a person is very stuck and hopeless feeling. In some cases, they're very vulnerable to danger. They're making poor decisions. They're doing high-risk behaviors. And they really are hopeless and powerless in the sense that they don't know how to stop those patterns of behavior.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that, because at the time when I stopped, I felt like I was in a hopeless position. My family tried to intervene, but they didn't at the time use a professional such as yours. So what would be the differences between a family intervening because they may have seen a television show about intervention, they wanted to do it on their own, versus a company such as yours?
Right. Well, see, when families say, oh, we tried an intervention and that didn't work, I very respectfully tried to teach that, well, what you did was more what I would call a family confrontation. You were scared, you were concerned, you loved that person, you confronted them with where their life was heading, the danger, but often they end in angry words, slam doors, someone takes off with the car, and they usually don't end very successfully, and they also only last from 10 minutes to maybe a half hour because the person in trouble is experiencing so much shame and feeling trapped and ganged up on often, and even with well-meaning families who are speaking in a very graceful, compassionate way, they usually don't go very well because what's happening there is just the immediate family system is in operation like it usually operates around that individual's life. Whereas a professional intervention, an interventionist like myself who views it as a profession and a ministry, my son or I or anyone like us would come alongside that family. We would do about 4 to 5 hours of skillful teaching and using a group process to get people's feelings out, to help them understand their anger and their fear and their rage about that person who's out of control that they love so much. So we're very careful on how we guide them. I use the example that I will be the orchestra conductor, and all of you as family members and friends are the instruments, and I will guide this orchestra to be one that is appropriate, one where your loved one doesn't feel condemned or indicted or judged, but where they feel safe, they feel accepted, they feel loved and valued. And yes, we're not going to candy coat the severe danger they're in, but we're going to do it in such a way that hopefully they will hear a lot better than a normal family confrontation. And then, of course, after 4 to 5 hours of preparation and training and prayer, then everyone gets a good night's rest, and we start the next morning, and we do the full family intervention, and then we require to do the transport. So we take the person right to the treatment center. We don't want anything to backfire, or we don't want any backpedaling or anything to fall through on the day of the intervention. And by following our methods, John, we're successful 9 out of 10 times. And, of course, if a person's a good interventionist, that's a pretty common statistic you hear around the country, is that the admission rate is around 90% for most of us.
So, you had mentioned as we began this conversation this evening about you being a youth pastor. And when I envisioned this radio program for San Diego, it was first because you don't hear people talking about addiction on the radio. I mean, you see a little bit on the cable channels, but no one really wants to talk about addiction. But my research told me that the churches are, they do a lot of work. I mean, it's a huge hospital, and there are many churches out there that are equipped with many great programs to help the family, but not too many programs to help the addict and the families of those people. Do you find that to be true?
I find a lot of churches are very active with ministries that help an alcoholic or a drug addict or someone with an eating disorder after treatment. A lot of support groups, great ministries like Celebrate Recovery and others that are fashioned similarly after them. It's encouraging to me that so many churches now are safe places for people to have issues of brokenness and where they need to rebuild their lives. You see, Christians aren't exempt, are they, John? We all struggle with issues. None
Absolutely.
of us have a perfect life.
Yeah.
None of us can obey our Savior perfectly. And, we hear this thing about dysfunctional people or dysfunctional families, and I think all of us have struggles and all families have issues, but we're functioning, we're healthy if we go through life's problems and face them square on. But it's dysfunctional when we squirm out of them, like the book of John says. Don't squirm out of your life's problems or go through them. Don't avoid your difficulties. Don't avoid pain, but go right through it. Mm-hmm. And so now I think a lot of churches are giving permission that all of us have struggles. Let's create a safe environment, a safe community where we can encourage each other to go through life's difficulties, where we can ask for support and prayer, and we can talk about a troubled marriage or a son that's on drugs or a daughter who's dying of anorexia or bulimia. And we don't have to be ashamed. We because of our identity in Christ, we can face into it fully with some trustworthy people and hold that person accountable to get well instead of covering up the secrets.
When we've started a new program here at Recovery Radio, if you or someone you know is at a point where you want to begin again and get on the road to sobriety, we do have some financial help that's being made available through the folks up at Pacific Hills Treatment Centers. And I circle back with this because, again, my research is telling me the church was wonderful. My church especially was wonderful. When I was struggling with my problem, they came right in and took care of my family while I was out trying to take care of myself.
That's wonderful.
But it's that immediate first aid that people are looking for, and some churches we see just aren't equipped for that. And the reason why I bring this up is I'm going to encourage businesses and churches that are listening to this radio program to call 949-973-9140. And that's the phone number up to Todd, who is a partner in this program. And Todd has got just a great program, and he's put together for churches. If you're interested in hearing about what Pacific Hills Treatment Centers can do to get you onto the road of sobriety,